In Bosra, there are Christians. Muhammad's caravan stops near a monastery where a monk named Bahira lives. The biographer says that Bahira had a dream foretelling he would witness the coming of a prophet. Bahira knows Abu Talib well. As the two men meet, Bahira's glance falls on the young Muhammad, and he recognizes the prophet from his dream. A Christian monk acknowledges Muhammad's calling, neatly underlining the closeness of the two religions. Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, son of Mary, is the most important prophet before Muhammad. The Quran describes Jesus as the Messiah and as a miracle worker. His birth, the Quran and St. Luke's Gospel agree, was announced to the Virgin Mary by the Archangel Gabriel.
Jesus spielt im Koran eine erstaunlich positive Rolle. Das wissen die meisten Christen nicht. Jesus ist eigentlich nie negativ eingeführt. Aber Mohammed war sehr ablehnend gegen diese Christen, die sich mit Hilfe der griechischen Philosophie eine Christologie gebaut haben, die sehr überhöht war. Er hat protestiert dagegen, dass man ihn zu Gott macht.
The four Gospels of the New Testament left space for different interpretations, leading to furious disputes in early Christianity. The Byzantine emperor forced through his preferred doctrine. Jesus is truly God and a real person at the same time. Many Christians preferred the interpretation of Bishop Arius, who denied the divinity of Jesus. The idea that Jesus was simply a prophet sent by God was not Muhammad's invention. In 638, 6 years after Muhammad's death, Jerusalem is captured by a Muslim general. There has been a church here for 3 centuries, at the supposed site of Jesus' grave, Christianity's most sacred place. In the center of the church is a small stone pavilion erected over an ancient empty tomb. Arching over the grave, a mighty dome, resting on an 8-sided pediment. An architectural model also found in another great building nearby, the Islamic Dome of the Rock. The Arab conquerors constructed this building with the help of Byzantine architects, the oldest sacred building of the Islamic world. It's built over the rock where Muhammad made his legendary ascent to heaven. Beneath is a cave, probably an ancient cistern, possibly a grave. Orientalist Christoph Luxemburg believes the similarity with the Church of the Tomb of Christ is no coincidence. He's convinced that in the Dome of the Rock, Muslims venerated the true grave of Christ. He prefers not to reveal his face because he fears the reaction of Muslim extremists to his views.
Das ist einmalig in der islamischen Tradition, dass nur dieser Bau so bezeichnet wird als Felsenturm. Denn unter Fels ist nicht nur die Oberfläche des Felsens gemeint, sondern gerade das Innere. Denn unter diesem Fels ist ja eine Krypta. Und in dieser Krypta kann man ein Grab erkennen. Es muss ja nicht so gewesen sein, dass das historische Grab Christi gewesen sein müsste. Aber symbolisch hat also die entstehende arabische Macht damit das Grab Christi gemeint. Und deswegen war dieser Felsendom als Gegenstück zur byzantinischen Auferstehungskirche gedacht.
Inscriptions on the dome itself could argue for his hypothesis. One of them says, Jesus, son of Mary, is but the servant of God. In the dome, Muslims revere their Jesus as man and prophet, like Muhammad himself. In one decisive point, the Quran departs from the Gospels. It rejects the crucifixion. Jesus ascends unharmed into heaven.
Der Koran hält nichts davon, dass Jesus einfach so wie ein anderer Mensch einfach hingerichtet werden konnte. Man sah ihn als zu groß an, dass das einfach so möglich wäre. Er hat ja auch dem Bild des Propheten Mohammed entsprechen müssen und der ließ sich auch nicht einfach hinrichten.
The prophet died a natural death on the 8th of June 632. He was buried in Medina. Who could follow in the footsteps of a man who changed the world, perhaps more than any other single human being, before or after him? Who could take up the political and religious legacy symbolized by the sword of the prophet? The struggle for power began immediately after Muhammad's death.
Es ging um Macht, es ging um sehr viel Geld. Es ging um die ganze Beute. Es war die Zeit der großen Eroberungen. Und es ging um Posten. Denn die Statthalterstellen mussten besetzt werden. Und das waren Pfründe. Ja, wie schon im alten Rom. Und wie später auch hier bei uns im Mittelalter in Europa. Und das wollte man verteilen, zum Teil in der möglichst in der eigenen Familie.
For 30 years after Muhammad's death, relatives and tribal leaders vie for the post of caliph, his successor. Finally, a new leader emerges, Ali ibn Abi Talib, a cousin of Muhammad who married the Prophet's daughter. His followers say they belong to the party of Ali, Shiat Ali in Arabic. Later, they will be known as Shias. By the year 661, Ali is the strong man of the Muslim world. But some still refuse to bow to his authority. On a bright January day, Ali is leaving Friday prayers at Kufa in Iraq. He's in a good mood, at ease with loyal followers. But there's an assassin in the crowd. At first, the stab wound seems a mere scratch, but the dagger is poisoned. 2 days later, Ali dies. The background to the attack is never known, but Ali's supporters blame an influential family in Damascus, the Umayyads. His son Hussein raises an army and launches it against his father's murderers. The battle takes place near the city of Karbala. Hussein's army deserts him. With just 72 die-hard supporters, Hussein withstands the enemy onslaught for a whole day. Finally, he is cut down. Ever since then, the followers of the Prophet have been split in two.
Es ging nicht um religiöse Fragen. Die Ursache ist letztlich, wenn man so will, dass Mohammed es versäumt hatte, seine Nachfolge zu regeln.
Out of the conflict over Muhammad's successor, a branch of the Islamic faith is born with its own traditions and rituals, Shiism. Today, about 15% of all Muslims are Shias. They still mourn the dead of Karbala. The day of memorial is called Ashura. Shias believe that every tear brings them closer to their murdered leader in paradise. And they hope that one day a Messiah will come and help them regain their birthright.
The Shia formed at a time in which the majority Muslim community, the so-called Sunnis, were basically in charge of everything. And so those new converts to Islam who weren't Arab and who were by definition second-class citizens gravitated towards Shiism because it offered the same kind of spirituality but in an alternative form, in a anti-establishment form. It was Islam, but not the Islam of the rulers.
The Islam of the Sunni majority has a new leading family, the Umayyads. They create the world's first Arab state. They move the seat of government from Mecca to Damascus. This city will be called the Pearl of the Orient, not least because of the splendor of the Umayyad Mosque. Beside the Dome of the Rock, the most important building of early Islam. Yet, Muslim historians will later condemn the Umayyads as the rotten branch of the tree of Islam. And to judge by the decoration of the small desert fortress of Qaza Amra, the taste of these rulers was a long way from what we think of as Islamic today. The rooms are painted with scenes of people in their daily activities, hunting, and there are fabulous animals and mythic creatures. The whole surveyed by Jesus, painted in the Byzantine style. This is particularly shocking for later generations of Muslims. Naked women. The Umayyad court would withdraw into this sensuous and permissive refuge when plague raged in Damascus and their other cities. But the days of this first Muslim dynasty are numbered. Around the year 750, the Umayyads are deposed by another dynasty. For hundreds of years, the center of power in the Islamic world will lie far to the east. Here, in the 8th century, a great city is born, with no equal on earth. Baghdad. Built by invading Arabs on the glories of the defeated Persian Empire. 1 million inhabitants, running water in the houses, public parks, and thousands of baths. Baghdadi merchants trading internationally turn their city into a unique financial center. As though designed on a drawing board, Baghdad is perfectly round. At its center, the Caliph's palace, surrounded by gardens filled with exotic animals. But Baghdad isn't different from Damascus just in size. Dozens of languages can be heard in its streets. A whole variety of peoples come together here. Turks, Persians, Arabs, Asiatics. It's in Baghdad that the religion of the Bedouins becomes a global culture. The rulers of this world call themselves Abbasids. The splendor of their court is legendary, and so is its decadence. A book that sums up the Orient just as much as the Quran was written here. The 1001 Nights, also known as the Arabian Nights, with its central figure, the lovely slave Scheherazade. Scheherazade lives at the court of a cruel despot. Every night he selects new female company, and every morning he has the girl put to death. But Scheherazade is more resourceful than the others. She tells her lord stories that grip him so much that he always lets her live to hear the next installment. Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves, Sinbad, Aladdin and his wonderful lamp. This collection of fables was born in the 9th century. Some episodes are exotic, some are bawdy. This lively mix of human passions is just as much part of Islamic culture as the Quran.
It may surprise you. Islam is not a faith of pain. It's not a faith of suffering. It's a faith in which the individual who is happy in his life thanks God for that blessing. There is no requirement to reject happiness. There's no requirement to reject entertainment.
In the liberal atmosphere of Baghdad, literature, art and philosophy thrive. Here, people who call themselves Mutazilites dare to claim that God can be recognized through pure reason, without the revelations of the Quran. An outbreak of free thought triggered by the texts of the Greek philosophers. But the traditional Quranic scholars can't stand the Mutazilites.
The Mu'tazilites were elite movement. So it did not reach, the grassroots level, while the jurists, the fuqaha, the traditionalist fuqaha, who gave Friday sermons in mosque, they are reaching more grassroots level. So if any political system would like really to have public support, it has to make good connection with the traditionalists rather than with the elites.
The fuqaha, the traditional Quranic preachers, find fertile ground among the crowds in the backstreets of Baghdad. The Abbasid capital is not just a city of palaces. It's also a place of terrible poverty. And here radical preachers have no problem getting their message across. They're so effective as rabble-rousers that even the caliphs have to submit to their demands. At the end of Baghdad's golden era, the Quran becomes unchallengeable, as it remains today. Muhammad gave the world a book. He could no longer influence how people would read it, nor the route it would take into history. But with this book, he changed the world.
Der Prophet Mohammed ist eine epochale Figur, schon als einiger der arabischen Halbinsel politisch gesehen, in relativ wenigen Jahren. Er hat die arabische Nation aus einer Stammesgesellschaft dann wirklich zu einem einzigen Volk gemacht. Aber auch, dass er ein ethisches Programm verkündet hat, ein Programm der Gerechtigkeit. Das hat die ganzen Araber und viele Völker, die dann auch den Islam angenommen haben, auf eine andere Kulturstufe gestellt. Und insofern ist er eine der großen Leitfiguren der Menschheit.
200 years after the Prophet's death, Islam has spread over 3 continents. In the east, as far as the Pamir Mountains, the border with China. The peoples of Central Asia, too, have converted to Muhammad's faith. In the Middle Ages, Samarkand and Bukhara, in today's Uzbekistan, become centers of art and science whose reputation reaches all the way to Western Europe. The Prophet's banner is unfurled in North Africa, too. In the coming centuries, Cairo will grow to be the greatest Muslim city on earth. Muslim armies spread along the Mediterranean coast as far as the Atlantic. From here, they make the leap to Europe. They occupy Spain. Around the year 730, they move into France. At Tours and Poitiers, the Arab warriors come upon fighters from a people who call themselves the Franks, led by a noble called Karl Martel. The Arab defeat will be known as a great turning point of European history. Today, historians doubt whether the Arabs really planned to conquer northern Europe. Probably this was a small Muslim force only interested in plunder. But most of Spain will remain under Muslim rule for centuries. This is the start of a glorious era in which Muslims and Christians live together in peace. Arab scholars return lost ancient knowledge to the West, vastly enhanced by their own studies. Science and the arts experience a boom. This is the crucial impulse for the rise of intellectual life in Europe. The golden age of Islamic culture has begun.